One summer, when I was a teenager, my younger brother and I went camping with our dad. It was a designated campground in a provincial park, and it had a fire pit and a place for our RV, but it wasn't like most campgrounds. It didn't really have any others neighboring it. It was deep in the forest, and quite a drive down a very thin dirt road. I actually really liked the drive in, being able to reach my hand out the window and feel the plant life. I pretended I was on a roller coaster ride through the jungle. Our legs were yearning for a good stretch as we got out of the RV and started running around our little campgrounds. Our dad was grabbing some stuff out of the back and setting it down outside on the picnic table. I was roughhousing with my little brother, chasing him around and following him into the brush, when suddenly, not too far into the forest, he stopped running. I caught up to him and immediately saw what he was looking at. I panicked and pulled him away. "Is that a bear?" I asked him rhetorically. I was pretty sure that it was, and for a split second I thought it was alive, but it was lying on its back and two of its limbs had been ripped off. There was a massive hole in its torso, and some of its intestines were ripped out, uncoiled, and looped all over the place. Oh my god. What do you think did this? I stepped over some ripped out tufts of fur strewn across the ground and took a look at the bear's face. It's not always easy to make out the emotions on an animal's face, but I could tell that this bear was shocked and horrified when it died. Its eyes were open wide, however, and its jaw hung open loosely, as though it had been roaring as it died. "What are you boys doing?" our father called as he approached us. "Oh my god, is that a grizzly bear?" he remarked in a manner similar to me. "You should stay away from that thing. Looks like it died of a disease or something." We ate sandwiches outside for lunch. They were pretty good, but I couldn't really stop thinking about my theory that something had killed and eaten that bear. I carried a feeling of unease with me into our afternoon hike. There was one trail in the entire park that circumnavigated the whole thing, so we knew we wouldn't be able to do the entire thing in one day, but we thought it'd be fun to check out what there was near us. The forest was surprisingly thin, which was disappointing, and the trees seemed young, and at the same time I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me from behind them. Although I could see a good 50 meters or so in every direction, there was an incredibly thick feeling in the air. I don't know how to describe it other than that, and I couldn't get the smell of the bear's blood out of my nose. In fact, it seemed to get stronger the further we walked from the campground. A couple times, in my peripheral vision, I swore in the distance I could see something massive darting out of view, but it could have been paranoia. We didn't talk about it, but I know that they could feel the same uncomfortable presence that I felt. And later that afternoon, when we got back to the RV, we noticed that it was not where we parked it. The entire vehicle had turned almost 90 degrees, such that it was nearly touching the picnic table. My father looked positively alarmed and wondered if someone had broken in, but it was clear from the single set of tire marks on the ground that the front end had been pushed by something or dragged. My little brother started crying, and in hindsight, that was the point at which we should have gone home. We really ought to have known better, but we were determined to make the most of our vacation. We got a bonfire going as the evening fell, and we were toasting marshmallows over it. But I could tell everyone was on edge, and in the night, as we slept in our bunks in the RV, we could hear strange noises outside. Our father was already asleep, but my brother and I listened, wide-eyed, staring at each other, as we heard what sounded like a very heavy man doing a lap around us. Branches cracking and twigs breaking, leaves crunching, that sort of thing. But we could even feel a tremor, and that was what probably alarmed us the most. The footsteps walked away in the direction of the bear, and we heard muffled, dragging noises disappear into the forest. After some time, my little brother fell asleep, but not too long after that, I heard the footsteps approaching again. There was a deep, gruff breathing coming through the slightly open RV window, and I swear I could make out a pair of red eyes staring at me. That window must have been at least 7 feet up. I was so terrified that if I moved an inch, it would see me. It may even have seen me, but in another few moments, it backed away from the window, and I heard the breathing disappear again. I wasn't able to get to sleep until dawn finally started to break. My father woke up a couple hours later and turned the RV around such that it was facing the road again. This was a very drowsy memory though, and I only barely woke up, so a part of it feels like a dream. But I remember him leaving the RV, taking his breakfast with him out to the picnic table. My younger brother and I, both being teenagers, slept in, and of course I needed extra sleep being up all night. But when I woke up, it was because my little brother was shaking me. "Where's Dad?" He seemed deeply concerned, and a jolt of anxiety ran through me as I remembered what I had seen outside my window last night. We got up and left the RV, walking through the campground, calling out for him. My anxiety deepened as I realized the picnic table had been flipped over and a bowl of granola lay in the dust. My first instinct was to wade into the brush to the spot where we had seen the carcass of the bear, and sure enough, behind those bushes and tall grass something was there. For about 5 seconds, my brain couldn't understand what it was looking at. It looked like my father on the ground, his left arm and right leg missing, the muscle of his chest peeled off and his ribs broken through. Some great, monstrous beast was devouring him. But my brain could not accept that that was really him. I kept trying to convince myself that it was some weird, gory artwork or a wax figure, and it wasn't until my little brother saw it and screamed that I snapped back to reality. The beast looked up. It hadn't seemed to notice us, and immediately I knew that that was the thing that had stared at me last night. It had blood-red eyes that almost seemed to glow, black horizontal bars for pupils like a goat's. Its face was the shape of a goat's too, and as its dull teeth chewed looking up at us, it looked sickly satisfied, and even eager for more. It stood up on its hind legs, and it became clear that it was easily 9 feet tall, maybe even 10 or 11 feet. It had hooves for feet and a narrow, knobbly knee-leg structure like a goat. Its torso looked humanoid, although it was covered in dark fur, and it had extremely long arms that nearly brushed its knees with razor-sharp claws on end. Finally, on its head, it had what seemed like white-tailed deer antlers scaled up to a creature of its size. Again, I was frozen in place, unable to believe what I was seeing. My little brother screamed again and tugged on my arm hard, and I bolted with him back to the RV, looking behind me once to see the creature lumbering towards us, licking its lips with blood dripping down. It was panting with excitement as we got in and slammed the door behind us. My heart stopped as I realized it was intelligent. It reached towards the handle, but its fingers were too big to fit through. Standing at its full height, we could see it grinning at us from outside the window, and it smashed them one by one, flailing its claws around inside the cabin. We both dropped to the floor so it couldn't see us and to avoid its long arm. The creature was breathing excitedly, and we could even hear it giggling.
"Oh, that's no fun."
My brother and I looked at each other in horror again as the creature spoke in a deep voice. Even at its height, it couldn't get a good angle down onto the floor with its arms, and after a few more minutes of peak stress, it finally gave up.
Well, you can't hide forever.
The creature started moving away from the RV again, and we could hear it muttering to itself as it went. We knew better than to get up just yet, and moments later we heard it charge, ramming the side of the RV with its antlers and knocking us over. The creature started to climb on top of the vehicle, and thinking quickly, I ushered my brother into the kitchen cupboards where it wouldn't be able to see us. We could hear the crunch of metal and glass as it climbed atop, but luckily the structure of the RV held. We could hear its arm and hand searching for us around every nook and cranny.
Where did you go? I just want a little tasty treat.
We could hear it licking its lips again. We were both covering our mouths, shaking uncontrollably, knowing that a single peep could mean death. After some time, I could feel when a massive weight lifted itself from the RV and jumped onto the ground next to it. The creature had stopped trying to communicate with us, and it wandered away into the forest quietly. In the meantime, I began to think of a plan to get out of there. I knew we had no chance getting out on foot, but I had had some driving lessons, and I knew that if we could right the RV, I could get us out of there. It was psychologically difficult leaving my father's body behind, but my brother convinced me that that's what he would want. The creature didn't leave us. It was still doing laps around the RV, still searching for an entry point or a way to look at us. I whispered my plan to my little brother, and we both mentally prepared to do what needed to be done. When I could hear the footsteps of the monster situated on the top side of the upturned vehicle, I told my brother it was go time. We both burst out of the cupboards and I ran to the wheel. I located the keys in the cup holder and waited. Meanwhile, my little brother jumped up to the windows. "Hey, over here!" he yelled, peeking his head through them. He immediately ducked down as a massive force struck the side of the RV. In a frenzy of hunger, the beast had accidentally righted the vehicle. I scrambled back to my feet, put the keys in the ignition, and hit the gas. Adrenaline was pounding through my veins as I drove down that dirt road as fast as I could. It was bumpy and difficult to keep the wheels straight, but I could hear the creature charging up behind us. With its massive antlers, it even rammed the back of the vehicle a couple of times, but I was too focused to even feel any more fear, and after about 10 minutes of chasing, I saw it, defeated in the side view mirror. Standing upright in the middle of the road, it made an applauding gesture, then slinked back down to all fours and ventured into the woods. Through the rest of that drive down the dirt road, I kept being terrified that it was moving to cut us off, but we never saw it again. At the entrance to the park, I alerted the authorities as to what happened. We were both extremely shaken up and in tears. It's something that I've been trying to deal with in therapy over the last couple of years, and although it's helped with understanding the loss of my father, I've never been able to get a psychologist to believe that what I saw happened. Although several attempts were made, my father's body was never found. After doing some research, I know that the creature we saw that day was a Wendigo, the most fearsome creature in the forest according to Algonquin folklore. It's a legend, only rumored to exist. But I promise you it's real, and I don't think I'll ever go camping again, but if you're planning on a trip, do yourself a favor, bring some grenades or something. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that story. Tune in next Thursday for a brand new original creepypasta, and tune in on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Nightmare Theater, an open book club for nightmares. You can also send me your nightmares and I'll read them live on air. Send them to theforgottengrove@gmail.com, and until next time, embrace the beautiful dark.